Hey everyone, Patrick CK here. After nearly 3 years of almost daily service, my original Xreal Airs have officially hit the end of the road. I didn't abuse these. This wasn't a drop or an accident. This was a slow structural failure. If you look at these hinges, the constant mechanical stress of folding and unfolding eventually fatigued the ABS plastic right past the metal reinforcement. Now the only thing holding it together are the cables that run to the speakers and controls. These weren't a novelty for me. When they broke, I realized just how much I relied on them, and probably not in the way that most people would think. Throughout the day, I take breaks from staring at a computer screen and hop on my little treadmill or walk around my house to get my steps. And instead of staring at my phone, which is the fastest way to ruin your posture and develop tech neck, I wear these. It allows me to stand up straight, shoulders back, looking forward while I catch up on YouTube or research scripts. It's an ergonomic aid that just happens to be a high-end display. It has actually helped improve my posture while walking. I'm guessing many of you need to fix your tech necks as well. Now though, they don't fit properly anymore. They just keep sliding off. While I could probably super glue or hot glue them together, they'll just come apart again anyway. It was time for an upgrade, and that's where the VITURE Luma Pros come in. Right as we open the box, we get all the instructions we'll need to operate the glasses. In the accessories box, we have a bunch of manuals in various languages. Then we have an assortment of magnetic nose pads and other accessories. The hard case itself is quite beefy. I imagine this will survive some abuse. In the top compartment, we have a hefty power/display cable. One of the most impactful changes here is the magnetic pogo pin connector. On the old glasses, the USB-C port was a fixed point of failure. If you snagged that cable, you're putting all the stress on the frame. With VITURE, it's a magnetic breakaway. If the cord gets snagged, it just pops off. That alone is a win for longevity. But it also introduces a whole new set of problems that I'll get into later. On to the glasses. The build philosophy here is quite different. While the plastics on the Xreals felt okay, the Luma Pros use a high-grade polycarbonate and has this interesting cyberpunk design along the arms. Here we get a look at where the power cable attaches. I don't know how I feel about exposed pins like this. I'll probably keep the cable attached most of the time, like I did with the old glasses. One thing I immediately checked were the hinges. The Xreals used a thin plastic sleeve over a spring, which is exactly where they eventually broke away. The Luma Pros feel much more robust. They use a reinforced aviation-grade material for the hinge mechanism. It also moves far more freely than the stiffer Xreal hinges. So hopefully, that'll put less stress on the frame when opening and closing them. It feels like it's built to handle daily wear and tear, not just occasional use. There's also the thermal aspect. My Xreals used to get quite hot on the left temple, which I think contributed to the plastic becoming brittle. VITURE says their design has improved airflow compared to the older versions. It should feel cooler to wear, which hopefully means the plastic won't be slow cooked over the next few years. Only time will tell. The electrochromic glass is a very cool feature. Its power usage is insignificant compared to everything else that draws power. My only gripe is that it doesn't go completely black, which you'll notice if you're in a well-lit room. So I wish it came with a physical cover like the Xreals did. You can buy a pair of Kanye-style shutter shades for $9 from VITURE, which I did. Unfortunately, they seem pointless to me. because you still have to turn on the electrochromic glass to block the light. You can probably 3D print a real pair of shades. I may work on that if there's not one already. For my fellow four-eyed viewers, we have built-in, individually adjustable diopter dials. My vision is right at the -4 limit of the glasses. What's great about this is that there's no need for costly third-party inserts or eyelashes hitting the glass. It's a much cleaner experience. Unfortunately, if you do need more adjustment than that, you'll have to go with the Luma Ultra version, which can reach a -6. As we adjust the dials, we can see the screens moving up and down within the housing. It's a clever, simple setup, even if it does mean that these are a little bulkier to accommodate this mechanism. I still really appreciate it. As for the technical specs, we're moving from a standard 1080p to a 1920 by 1200 pixel resolution that can go up to 120 Hz. That 16 by 10 aspect ratio might not sound like much, but combined with the improved FOV of 52 degrees versus 46, those extra vertical pixels means that much more screen space without having to scroll. Then there's the brightness and color of the micro-OLEDs. The Luma Pros can hit 1000 nits, which is double the original Xreals. They're also color graded from the factory to have a delta E of less than 2. For someone like me who cares about color accuracy for content creation, that's important. Although a printout of the test results would have been nice for confirmation. So what is it like to actually use? In one word, sharp. The image quality on the Luma Pros is a noticeable step up. Even small text is perfectly readable. When it comes to movies and videos, it's just a much more enjoyable, crisp experience. Subjectively, the image just looks better than what I was getting from the Xreals. The sound is also great, thanks to the Harman speakers. They are surprisingly well tuned right out of the box for media consumption. You get a full, clear sound that really complements the visuals. As for the field of view, I'd describe it as good. I'm not going to say it's great. We're not at VR levels of immersion yet, but it is definitely an improvement over the Xreals. You just feel like you have a bit more screen room for videos to play across. The fit is impressive. These stay put. Even when I'm on the treadmill at a jogging pace, they don't slip or bounce around. And they do that without feeling like they're squeezing your head. Your mileage may vary. But there is one ergonomic quirk I'm still getting used to: the cable. On the Xreals, the cable came straight out of the back of the arm, which felt very stealthy. On the VITURE, the connector is on the right side and it's a bit bulky. Depending on the shape of your ear, you may or may not notice it sticking out. Overall though, I'm really happy. Between the image quality, the fit, and the sound, these are going to be my new go-to for the treadmill or just walking around inside. One issue I had with the Xreals, aside from them rotting over time, was the power draw on my phone. Luckily, the Luma Pros are far more power efficient. In my testing, while plugged into my Samsung S24 Ultra, watching YouTube on a treadmill for about 20 minutes dropped my phone's battery roughly 8%, which is much better than the 15% drop I saw with the Xreals. Not bad at all. You still need to be aware of it if your battery is already low. Now, on your smartphone, you can technically use the Spacewalker app, but honestly, I just couldn't get it to work properly for me. The biggest issue is what's called sandboxing. On Android, Spacewalker can't just grab your native YouTube or Netflix apps and put them into a virtual space. It forces you to use its own browser, and for me, every time I tried to use it, none of my accounts would stay logged in. Plus, the experience just felt clunky compared to what I'm used to. So I'll stick to just using the native Samsung DeX app. DeX works perfectly with every app I already have installed without making me jump through hoops. I've read that iPhone users love Spacewalker because it gives them a Windows desktop experience that iOS is missing. It also unlocks 2D to 3D conversion features. But for us Samsung users, we already have DeX. If you're a non-Samsung or Apple user and you have a killer use case for Spacewalker that I'm missing, please let me know in the comments. Now on the laptop, that's a different story. The Spacewalker app is great. I can have a triple monitor setup and launch it anywhere. For example, here I have my school setup with the book on one screen, a PowerPoint on another, and notes on a third. It's very cool and surprisingly smooth, even at the lower 60 FPS I have here. The Spacewalker app has a bunch of nice quality of life features, like shortcuts to zoom in and out, and the ability to lock certain tilts, among others. I'm using this on my Asus ZenBook, which supports DisplayPort Alt mode over USB-C. So it's simply plug and play with the stock VITURE cable. But here's where I hit a wall. As much as I like this laptop, it doesn't have the horsepower to do what I actually do most of the time. When I need to render in Blender, or color grade in Photoshop, or scrub 4K timelines in Premiere, I need my beastly desktop. And that's where the plug and play dream dies. Because most desktop GPUs, like my RTX 3080, don't have a USB-C port at all, much less one that supports DisplayPort Alt mode. And my higher end X570 AMD motherboard doesn't have supporting ports either. Since the VITURE glasses have a proprietary cable, we need another way to connect the glasses to a desktop. I spent the last few weeks in adapter hell trying to bridge the gap between my RTX GPU and the proprietary VITURE cable. I've tested various couplers, expensive specialized cables, and I've had to troubleshoot through problems with all of them. I eventually found a solution that kind of works for me and hopefully can work for you. But it's a deep enough rabbit hole that it deserves its own video. So in the next one, I'm going to show the almost golden chain of adapters to get that 120 Hz triple monitor workstation running off your main rig, and take a deeper dive into the Spacewalker app on desktop. As always, I'll leave links to everything in the description. If you enjoy this content, like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, this has been Patrick CK. Goodbye.